Thank you for taking the time to listen to this message by Pastor Josh Cotts. We pray it blesses and encourages you throughout the week. If you'd like to know more about Living Word Church and the ministries associated with it, please visit our website at livingwordshawnee.org. Mark chapter 12, and I want to read verses 28 through 31. Mark 12, 28 through 31. It says, "One of the scribes came and heard them arguing, and recognizing that he had answered them well, asked him," Jesus, "what commandment is the foremost of all?" Jesus answered, "The foremost is, 'Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these." All right, how many were here last week? Awesome. If you weren't here last week, I encourage you to go back and to listen to that one. We talked about the importance of us loving God, because we talk a lot about how God loves us, and we talk about how important it is to love people, but I believe that we rarely remind ourselves of how important it is to love God as believers. I think maybe sometimes we think that we are loving Him, and we aren't totally laying our life down, which we did talk about how Jesus defined love and set the standard for love. It's what the Word says, when He gave Himself. He set the standard for love, and so love is sacrifice. We talked about how the minimum requirement for love is sacrifice. It always requires sacrifice. It's a laying down of our lives. We talked about love and hate, and how hate is not the opposite of love. It is the absence of love. Hate is not a force of power that moves against somebody or moves against love. It is simply the absence of love, because God is love and God has no opposites. Amen? There is no opposite to God. If there was an opposite to God, it's the absence of God. Right? There is no opposite force. So today what I wanted to do is, since we talked about how important it is that we love God last week, today what I wanted to do is talk about how we love God. All right? And this is, to me, one of the most basic scriptures in the Word that covers what it looks like to truly love God in the way that we are called to love Him. What it looks like. What does it look like to lay down our lives? But when we read here, we read about the very first commandment, and Jesus is actually quoting the actual first commandment in Deuteronomy. Love the Lord your God with all your whole heart, soul, your mind, and your strength, all right? And I believe that this entails every part of us that is meant to be given to God as we love Him, all right? So it says, Jesus says first, I'm just going to be going through each of these characteristics, or each of these places, I guess. In verse 30, He says, "You shall love the Lord your God." Everyone say, "You shall love the Lord your God." You shall love the Lord your God. All right. What I want us to remember is that this is a commandment. It's not a suggestion. All right? It's a commandment. Also, the fact that it is a commandment means that it's not automatic. Right? The fact that it is a commandment means that it's not automatic. I think that I know I experienced this growing up. We got so tied up in the rules of God that all we could think about is don't hate, don't murder, don't steal, don't lie, don't covet. Like, this is how we do it. But the very first commandment just says love Him. Love Him. Right? Now, this is a commandment. It's not saying that you will. Did He say you will love the Lord your God, or did He say you shall? It's a commandment. He's saying this is something you have to do. And it's like we've been so focused on the other rules, like like I said, not murdering, not lying, not stealing. We're good at making sure that we don't do those things that he's saying don't do, or honor your father and mother. Like, we're good at making sure. We have to remember to honor your father and mother, but how often do we go? We have to remember we have to love God. This is what we have to do. We have to love him, and it's a commandment, meaning it doesn't happen automatically. You guys have heard me say this before, but there's a time in my life where I found it difficult to tell Jesus that I loved him because I began to realize I don't know if I actually do. Because love is a very, very loaded word. There is a lot going on in that word. And I don't want to just flippantly tell God I love him if my life doesn't look like I do. You know, whenever you tell, if you're married, whenever you tell your husband or your wife that you love them, you're more than just telling him, you're not telling them what you feel for them, you're telling them what you will do for them. When you say I love you, you're making another commitment all over again, every time you say it. I love you, meaning after I say this, I'm going to continue to lay my life down for you. That's what it looks like. It's not just words, and it's not an emotion. It's something that encourages action. Well, whenever he says, you shall love the Lord your God, this word love means to give preference to. It means to give preference to. So we could read it, you shall give preference to the Lord with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. All right, everyone say give preference to. All right, so loving means giving preference to. So the first thing I want to look at is he says, you shall give preference to the Lord, or you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart. Everyone say heart. Actually, let's say this. Everyone say all. Okay, didn't say some, right? Didn't say a little bit, and it also didn't say a lot. It said all. All right, let's say it again, all. All right, he said, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart. This is how I feel about it. God doesn't deserve leftovers. He doesn't deserve what's left over at the end of the day. Like, okay, well, now I've used my heart in all these other things. Now that I've had some quiet time at the end of my day and I'm laying in bed, now I'll give you what's left of me, God. You can have what's left of me. He deserves the meal right out of the oven, fresh, soon as you wake up, making that decision, I'm going to give God all of my heart, not just some. This word heart means the center of our being. And if I were to be more specific about it, because you can say that all day and not really understand what it even means, the center of our being, I would say that the heart is where desires are formed. And the reason I believe that the heart being where our desires are formed, being the center of our being, is because everything that you and I do in one way or another is going to be based on what we desire. Everything. Even if you think you didn't want to do what you just did, you did it because you probably wanted to some extent. All right? We're not robots who can't control ourselves and don't know what we're doing. We're not just walking around making mistakes and sinning and doing good things. We're making intentional decisions, and it's really based on our desires. That's why I believe that the heart being the center of our being is the place where our desires are formed. And you know, in Psalm 37:4, it says, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Right? Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. I think that, like I said, our decisions that we make, I believe, are in one way or another based on what we desire. And then it's our decisions that end up making us who we are. It's our decisions that end up establishing who we are. It's not what you think or what you feel. It's what you decide to do based on what you think or what you feel or what you desire that really forms your character. You hear what I'm saying here? So, Proverbs 27:9 says, as in water face reflects face, so the heart of man reflects the man. As in water, face reflects face, and also the heart of man reflects the man. So whatever is in your heart is going to eventually be who you are. And I believe it's desire, decision, character. Desire, decision, identity, whatever you want to call it. Now, if love means to give preference to, then loving God with all of my heart means giving God preference over my heart. It means letting God have preference over my heart. It means I'm going to let God have my heart before I give it to anything or anybody else. He gets preference. He gets dibs. You know that word, right? Right? As soon as we wake up in the morning, why do you think his mercies are new every morning? That's God saying dibs. I got dibs. I got dibs on your heart. I got dibs on your soul, your mind, and your strength today. All right? But it's whether or not we give him preference over those, or we give him preference over those things that really determines how we love him with them. Let's look at Psalm 37:4. I know I referenced it just a minute ago, but let's go ahead and look at it. Psalm 37:4. Everybody say, I'm awake. All right, you said it. All right, Psalm 37:4. It says, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. The word delight here actually doesn't mean what you think it might mean and what I've thought it to mean before, and delight means, oh God, you're so good. That is delight, but it actually means something different here when it says delight. It actually means to be delicate. Delight means to be delicate, or to be soft or pliable, like Play-Doh or clay, right? Something that you can bend, something you can stretch, kind of like, I like pants that stretch, you know? Helps me to feel like I can eat a little bit more than I probably should, you know? They're gluttony pants is really what they are. But I like pants that are stretchy. It's nice. But that's what delight means. It means to be pliable, to be soft, to be delicate. And really, this is what I think of it. I almost imagine it as meaning if you're delighting yourself in the Lord, if you're making yourself delicate and soft and pliable in him, it's almost like you're intentionally positioning yourself on the potter's wheel, and you're keeping yourself in a form that allows him to mold you and shape you. How many of you have felt like you're on the potter's wheel, but you're like, I'm not moving. Like, I know you're trying to do something here, God, but I'm not going to let you do anything, right? But it's an intentional positioning of myself on the potter's wheel, letting him form me in the situations that I'm going through. And he takes his hands and begins to mold me and shape me into the person that I'm becoming through whatever I'm experiencing. Sometimes God takes us through experiences and we hate them so much that we just decide that this must not be from God because, God, you can't hate me this much. But it was God that put us in this experience so that he could mold us and shape us and form us through this experience. He could use whatever we're going through to help create us and to continue to create us and transform us into his image and into his likeness. So it's actually positioning myself on the potter's wheel, and it's a place of complete and total surrender to his will and purpose for my life, no matter what. Complete and totally surrendered to his will and to his purpose, no matter what I'm going through or what I'm feeling or what somebody said to me or did to me or what I tripped over. You know, sometimes you slam your finger in a door, literally, and you're like, why am I even here? Or the worst, like biting your lip. I'm not telling, there's nothing that makes me more angry than that. I mean, like, I did it the other day, and I had to leave the room. I was like, I'm going to scream right now. Like, just hate it. It's still there. I can show you the sore later. But I'm just, like, there's nothing more, like, you bite your lip, and I'm like, God, really? Like, you're bringing me through this right now? No. But it's placing myself in this place that says, God, I don't know why I'm experiencing what I'm experiencing right now, but I'm in your hands. Form me, shape me, create me, whatever you want to do. And you just kind of let him spin you around on this potter's wheel. And you just kind of relax and you let him form you. And sometimes it hurts because there's maybe a growth that you've had for a while that he begins to smooth out, and you got comfortable with that thing, but he's smoothing it out. And it's not comfortable, but it's where we need to be. Now, if the heart is the place where desires are formed, then letting God have preference over my heart means really letting him establish and even regulate my desires. It's being on that potter's wheel as he's crafting me and molding me and shaping me that it actually changes what I want. It changes what I want. He almost gives me an experience that I can't say no to again if I put myself there. If I'm resistant to the experience God wants to give me, I'm not going to get out of it what he wants me to get out of it, and it will have no effect or no impact on what I desire later on. But how many of you have gone through something really hard, and on the other side of it, I know hindsight's 20/20, but on the other side of it, you're like, I'm so glad I went through that. It's the same thing. So that the next time you go through something similar, you're like, I know what happened last time. I can do this. I can make it through this. It almost shapes what you want. It shapes your desires. And it is really a place of desire regulation on this potter's wheel. It's letting him have preference over the place where my desires are formed, and it allows him the opportunity to form my desires too. And that's why I believe this says, delight yourself in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. I don't think it means that he'll give you what you want. I think it means he'll give you new desires. Delight yourself in the Lord. Make yourself delicate. Make yourself soft and pliable in him, and he will give you desires. He will give you his desires in particular. Are you with me? Yes. All right, and then the next one. Let's look back at Mark chapter 12 again. Jesus says, you shall love the Lord your God, it's verse 30, with all your heart and with all your soul. Everyone say, all your soul. All right. This is one of my favorites. The soul is the seat of feelings, affections, emotions. This is my soul. This is where I feel things. This is where this is where my passion is. This is where I experience emotions. I think really, if I were to maybe simplify it, I'd say that the soul is a place of experience. It's a place of experience. When you feel something, whenever you feel something or you feel passionate about something, there's an experience that you've had with that thing. For me, it's Chinese food. That's an experience to me. Or the movie theater. Like, that's an experience for me too. Like, I feel something when I think about these things. It stirs something in me emotionally. I've never cried over food before, but if I was a crybaby, I probably would have. I've experienced some really good food before, and I've been like, oh, that's all I can think about. Have you ever been that way before? Like, when you experience some really good food for like the next weeks, you're like, that's all that I want. I don't want what we have in the fridge right now. I want to go back to that restaurant where we had that incredible meal and experience that again. This is what I feel like. Like, honestly, I know I'm just talking about food, but when you have some really good tasting food, it affects your soul. Like, it hits you really deep. Like there's something new stirring in there. And not only that, but I am a film junkie. I love movies. And whenever I was going to school for film, I had an actual film class, and I remember going in there being passionate about film, but my teacher was the most passionate person I've ever met about film. And what his passion did is it helped increase my passion. And it created this new experience for me in that area that I was just like, this is all that I want to do for the rest of my life. And now, here I am preaching, you know. But I think that the soul is a place of experience. I feel like it's how we are able to experience things. Even when you read stuff like in the Word, taste and see that the Lord is good. Tasting is the experience, you know. Obviously, seeing has to do with our perspective. It has to do with our vision and our perception. But the tasting, like God wants us to experience Him. Not just to know about Him, not just to know what the Word says, not to just be able to go through, rattle off Bible drills and stuff like that. I mean, that's okay, but that wasn't what Jesus was doing in the desert when the enemy was tempting Him. He was speaking out of something that He has experienced and something that was inside of Him. He was speaking out of that. I believe that the soul is kind of the bridge between the natural and the spiritual. It's how my natural self is able to experience the spiritual God, the things that I feel. And I believe that there is an emotional experience that we have and can have in His presence and in His glory and in worship even, right? Psalm 23:3, you don't have to go there, but it says that He restores my soul. He restores my soul. This literally translates to He repairs my emotions. He repairs my emotions. What a word for 2022 when so many people seem to be in emotional poverty and depression and disorders and diseases and just everything. And not only that, but it's now trendy to have emotional disorders. Like it's just popular. Well, what made it popular other than people have it and don't know how to deal with it and get attention for it, and then other people want it because you get attention for it? I'm like, what an answer. I'm just saying, what an answer right here. He repairs my emotions. What an answer for people who have been through heartbreak, who have been through emotional trauma in the past. It's right there. This is what He does. But that's what the soul is. It's a place of experience. If the soul is a place of experience and loving God means giving Him preference, then loving God with all my soul means giving Him preference over my experience. Letting Him have preference over my experience. Now, maybe you don't understand what this means yet, but when you wake up in the morning, you're already thinking about everything that you have to do throughout the day, all the stuff that you have on your agenda and all the stuff that you have on your schedule, and you're already making a plan, not for what you're going to do, but you're already making a plan for how you're going to experience it. As soon as you wake up in the morning, you're already deciding if you're going to have a good day or a bad day. You are. And this is what happens. When we make those decisions before we have that experience, what do you think happens whenever we do have the experience? It's going to be based on whatever we decided the experience was going to be. If you wake up in the morning deciding that you're going to have a bad day, that today is going to be a bad experience, then it will be. I'm just saying. Because your perspective on your day and on that experience will define how it turns out. If you wake up in the morning, you decide today is going to be a good day, it's going to be a good experience, then even the bad, the hard stuff that you walk through during the day, you're still going to be okay. It's incredible that God designed us that way, but He did. He did. He designed us that way. I would say, rather than saying it's going to be a bad day or it's going to be a difficult day, maybe say, God, what do you want me to experience today? This is letting God have preference over my experience. God, out of everything that I walk through and I go through today, I want to experience you. I want to have the experience that you want for me. I don't care what people's perspective is on the thing that I'm going through, whether it's good or bad. I want your perspective. Tell me what experience you want me to have out of this. How many of us walk away from a difficult situation already knowing because of things we've experienced in the past, that was a bad experience, before we even ask God, what did you want me to get out of that? Right? Are you with me? Okay. How many times do we walk away from a hard situation and because of something somebody said to us or because of something we've experienced before, we say, that was a hard experience, instead of saying, God, what did you want from me out of that? Did I miss the experience that you had for me? Did I miss what you were wanting to do and to establish in me? Like, what was going on there? I'm constantly doing this. I wish I could be fast enough to do it in the moment all the time. I'm not, though. Sometimes I walk away and I'm going, God, what did I miss? Like, what was wrong there? What went on there? What did I miss that you were wanting to do there? And I guarantee you, as soon as I started having that conversation with him, he starts showing me. He starts showing me, this is what I wanted you to get out of it. This is what I wanted you to experience. It's like picky eaters, too. Raise your hand if you're a picky eater. All right, you probably want to leave before this next part. All right. I'm going to tell you, I used to be a picky eater, and one day, this is going to sound silly to you, but one day I woke up and made the decision to enjoy everything, or to at least try everything. The way that I usually tell it is I made the decision to I'm going to like everything. I literally made that decision. I said it out loud, and it got to a point where you could put anything in front of me, and I'll at least try it. I mean, I'm not going to say it's my favorite thing in the world, but I'm also rarely just disgusted by something that I eat or that I drink. There's one time recently, Bailey bought these marshmallow Reese's peanut butter cups that they had for Easter or something like that, and they were sitting in the front seat of the car, and I was like, marshmallow Reese's peanut butter cups, that sounds pretty good. And I opened one up, a package, I took a bite, I put the rest of it down, I spit it out, and I threw it out the window. I was like, this is one of the worst things I've ever tasted in my entire life. But God didn't make processed sugar, so it doesn't count. I'm just like, it was so gross. But a picky eater, what they typically do is they decide beforehand, I don't like that, or I'm not going to like that. Or because of the way it looks, I don't want to put it in my mouth because of the way it looks. I know that's going to taste bad because it looks like that, or the way it smells. I know it's going to taste bad because of the way it smells. Listen, all fish smells bad, but fish is delicious, honestly. So you decide, you make this decision about your experience before you actually experience it, and what's possibly happening is you're totally missing out on an incredible experience here. And this is what we do with life. Rather than letting God have preference over our experience, asking Him what it is that He wants us to experience, we just look at something, and because of the way that it looks or sounds or smells or whatever, we're like, I'm not going to like that. I don't want to go through that. I don't want to experience that. But God's like, you're missing out on an incredible experience here. And if you just align your eyes with mine, align your perception with mine, give me preference over your experience, then you'll walk through that thing, and on the other side of it, you'll be glad that you did, right? So that's what it means to love God with all of our soul. And then he says, love God with all your mind. Everyone say, all your mind. The word mind here means understanding, but specifically in the area of our reasoning. Because there is a mind part, understanding part that deals with our knowledge, but this is specifically dealing with our reasoning. What is reasoning? Reasoning is the ability to form conclusions. That's what it is. It's the ability to form conclusions. Now, you and I were created with the ability to reason like God and to reason with Him, not against Him, but in partnership with Him. All right? The first bit of evidence, though, we have of somebody, of a person reasoning without God is in the garden. The serpent approaches Adam and Eve, or Adam and Eve approach the tree, and the serpent's around there and starts talking to them, and he says, God doesn't want you to eat from this tree because he knows if you eat from this tree, you're going to be like him. And that was verse 5 of chapter 3 in Genesis. And then in verse 6 of chapter 3 in Genesis, it says, when the woman saw that it looked good for food and it was pleasing to the eye, she took of it and ate and then gave some to her husband, right? We all know why men are messed up. I'm just teasing. But this was the first time we ever see evidence of human reasoning without God in the Bible, somewhere between 5 and 6 of chapter 3. Whenever the enemy says to Eve, God knows if you eat from this tree, you're going to be like him. And then it says she decides, well, it looks good for food and looks pleasing to the eye. I'm going to eat it. Somewhere between those two verses, she also made this decision. She came to this conclusion. Well, if eating this is going to make me like God, then I'll eat it. She came to this conclusion. Now, this was not God's conclusion. Her conclusion was, if I eat from this tree, it's going to make me like God. God's conclusion was, if you eat from this tree, you're going to die. The first bit of evidence we have of a person reasoning without God, reasoning outside of him. Also, another one that I love is in Matthew chapter 9, whenever Jairus approaches Jesus. And if you don't know who Jairus is, it's the man that approaches Jesus. His daughter's at home, almost dead. She's dying. And he approaches Jesus and says, my daughter's at home dying. I need you to come heal her. Like, I know that you can do it. And then Jesus gets delayed when the woman with the issue of blood touches the hem of his garment. And then they start having this conversation. And in the middle of their conversation, while Jesus and this woman are talking, Jairus' daughter dies. And somebody from his house shows up and says, don't bother Jesus anymore. Your daughter's dead. There's no point. Jesus turns to Jairus and says, don't be afraid. Only believe. They go ahead and go to their house. Jesus goes to his house. And when Jesus gets there, the funeral procession has started. There's music going. There's wailing and crying. They made it a whole big deal, all right? And Jesus looks at all of these people wailing and crying, and he says, get out of here. He says, leave. Go away. And why does he say that? He says, she's not dead. She's only sleeping. Perfect example of human reasoning. We see a person dead means their heart stopped beating, they stopped breathing, they stopped moving, they've gone cold, white, whatever you want to call it, We come to the conclusion, well, that person's dead. That's human reasoning, all right? Jesus sees this dead girl, and she is dead, okay? She is dead, but what does he say? She's only sleeping. Why is his conclusion she's only sleeping? Well, because when it comes to the power of God, resurrection is so easy for God that it may as well be that she's just sleeping. Like, he's sitting there thinking, it's so easy for me to wake this girl up, she might as well just be asleep. That bringing her back to life is no big deal, all right? So his conclusion was based on his reasoning. All I need to do is say, hey, wake up, girl. And she comes back to life. Her color comes back, her heart starts beating again, she starts breathing again, and she's back to life just by saying, hey, wake up, you're asleep, right? All right. So if loving God means giving him preference, and our mind right here is talking about our reasoning, then loving God with all our mind means giving him preference over our reasoning. This is kind of difficult to do, honestly. But it just comes down to the fact, before you draw your own conclusions, before drawing my own conclusions, it's asking God, before drawing our own conclusions, we ask God, what do you see going on here? Like, well, what do you think about this situation? What's your conclusion about this situation? We give him preference over our reasoning. We give his reasoning preference over our reasoning. God, what do you see going on here? What is your conclusion? What do you think about this situation? How often would you say that you ask him that before you start drawing your own conclusions? Oh, just me, okay. I need some advice from you guys then, right? I'm just trying to get you involved in here. Let's try that again. How many in here would say that you draw your own conclusions before asking God what he thinks? Okay, there we go. That's better. All right, we're all in the same family here. There's no judgment. All right, so we say, God, where do you see this going? What is your conclusion? What do you think about this situation? Just stop, shut your whole reasoning down, shut your mind down for just a second, quiet it down. If you have to, just tell it to shut up. Sometimes you do. Mind, reasoning, shut up. And even like we talked about this before, whenever David says, bless the Lord, O my soul, he's speaking to his reasoning. And bless means to kneel. So whenever he says, bless the Lord, O my soul, he's saying reasoning, kneel. Get on your knees. Bow before God. It's the same thing of being like in a situation that I don't understand. Even if you're staring somebody in the face who has just passed away in front of you and is laying there dead, ask God, God, what do you think about this? What is your conclusion here? What is your conclusion here? What do you think? What should I do in this situation? So that's giving him preference over our reasoning. And then he says, love the Lord your God with all your strength. Everybody say all your strength. All right. The word strength here means to the extent of one's ability or might. We're talking about physical strength here. Physical strength. All right? I'm talking about my might, what I can do with my body, what I can do with my energy, what I can do with all of this right here. That's what strength means here, my ability or my might. Now, if loving him means giving him preference, and my strength is my might, my natural might, then loving him with all of my strength means giving him preference over my might, over my ability. This one can be difficult to talk about, mainly because in this church, we encourage dancing, we encourage movement and worship. But we, first of all, need to get out of the habit that loving God, we need to get out of the habit of thinking that loving God only happens in worship. Loving God is a lifestyle. It's not something that we only do in worship, okay? It's not something we only do whenever there's music playing. It's a lifestyle, okay? But we do talk about, we encourage dancing, we exhort lifting your hands, clapping, moving around some sort. The reason we give those exhortations is because we do believe that if God gave you a body, you might as well give it to him. I mean, if he gave it to you, you might as well give it back to him. I know that he's not looking for a living sacrifice, but there is such thing as a sacrifice of praise, and I do believe that my body's involved. Yeah, and then if I'm giving him preference over all of my strength, I would say that means that I'm letting him choose how much of my strength he wants. I let him choose. This is where it gets difficult. We show up to church tired, drained. We've only been awake for 2 hours, but somehow we're already done, you know? Being a little sarcastic. And that is evidence of, even Reagan, sometimes she's been awake for 5 minutes and she's done, you know? But we show up to church and it's like, I've dealt with too much this morning. I've dealt with screaming children. I've dealt with a really nagging wife, you know, and sorry, I'm just trying to be funny. I really am just trying to be funny. That's not true at all. But whatever we've dealt with, it's like, I don't have anything to give right now. And we're just like, I'm just going to wait on God to show up. And once he shows up, then maybe I'll feel something and I'll get more energized and I'll feel like giving him something. I don't know. To me, that's not generosity. To me, that's not a spirit of worship or sacrifice. I'm just saying it's not. And I'm not saying that how much of your strength is measured in whether you're going to lift a finger or you're going to lift both hands or if you're going to hop or if you're going to like dance around all over the place. I'm not saying that strength is measured that way, but I am saying that there has to be something of our strength that we give if this is part of the commandment. And not just here, but I'm literally saying, God, my strength is yours. It's not mine. And whether I'm weary or hungry or tired or fed up, it still belongs to you. And so I'm going to give it to you no matter what I think. No matter if I think that I don't have enough, I'm still going to give it to you. Because not only have I been commanded to give it to you, but I really should want to give it to you, and it's yours anyway. It's yours. It belongs to you. Everything that I have in my strength belongs to you. I'm literally telling God, you get first pick on my strength. You get dibs. You get however much or however little you want. But in America especially, how often is it that God only gets what's left at the end of the day? How often is it that at the end of the day when I'm laying in bed, I finally remember to talk to him because I'm used to saying bedtime prayers or whatever? How often is it that I'm just going to wait until I've gotten my agenda done and all the things that I want to do? I'm going to wait until I use all of my energy to do the things that I want to do. And then after I've done everything that I want to do, you get what's left, God. It has to be the other way around. It has to be. God, have however much you want right now, here in this moment, before I get started with my own agenda, before I start expending my energy on all the other things. I hate that I have to ask people who are busy how their relationship with Jesus is. I should not have to ask anybody that. I shouldn't have to ask myself that. Busyness is more of a cuss word than the actual B word. I hate that word so much, busy. I hate it so much. I really do. And I'm not saying I just hate the word, but I hate how it's used. I hate the context of it. It comes out as like this excuse. It comes out as this excuse like, I'm busy and I don't have time, but God understands. It should be, God, have everything you want. My schedule will understand. You have me right now. My agenda, what I have planned for the rest of the day, it will understand because you come first. And I'm loving you with all of my strength, not just some of it and not just what is left over. If God is saying, I would rather you stay home and pray than go out to eat with your friends with this thing that you've had scheduled for a really long time, this is what we would typically do. I'm going to go out with my friends, and on the way to the restaurant, I'll pray. Or afterwards, I'll pray. Rather than being like, okay, God just asked for your strength right now. He asked for this time and this energy and this strength. Give it to him. Your friends will understand. If they don't, they're crazy and you probably need new friends. I'm just saying. Can you tell I'm passionate about this one? I'm saying this as somebody who has been way too drained and way too busy and way too mopey, really, in my lifetime. So much that I went to IHOP, not the restaurant, the house of prayer. I was so busy as a teenager that I went into a prophetic room with people I had never met before, and all three of them looked at me in the eye and said, you need to stop. You're doing way too much. You are way too busy. You are way too full, and you need to stop. One of them said this, you need to play some video games. I said, amen, hallelujah. Like seriously, they were like, you need to stop. Like you are going to kill yourself. You are going to destroy yourself because of how busy you are. And I was a teenager. Like I've been there. I really have. I've been there. I just don't, I was listening to this podcast the other day, and the guest on the show, he was asked this question. He said, "What's one of your biggest pet peeves?" He said, "When people tell me how busy they are." I was like, that's not kind of harsh, but man, it makes sense, because I started thinking about this. I was like, you never know when the person that you're talking to is way more busy than you are, first of all. And you saying that you're busy because you spent 4 hours today doing something when they just got home from a 17-hour shift, you're like, you got to be careful with that. But the other thing is that when that's the first thing out of my mouth, what do you think I care about the most? What do you think I care about the most? I care about the most what I'm doing. I care about the most, what I feel and what I want and what I'm not getting and where, woe is me in my life and all of that. And I don't mean to tear anybody down, because I'm talking to myself too here. I have had to strain and strive to not just focus on this one thing. I'm so busy. I'm so worn out. I'm so tired. Because after seeing this, I'm like, God, I'm so tired because of all this stuff that I'm doing, and I'm so tired because my schedule is so full. But what did you get out of any of this? How much of my energy was used for you? How much of my strength was used for you? And we can make justifications all day. Well, when I go to work for Jesus, that kind of stuff. Whenever I go out for Jesus. Okay, I'm talking like, how about get in your room and use some of your strength to have a good old-fashioned conversation with Jesus, or sing to him, or dance before him. Do something with your strength. Give that part to him. In the very beginning of your day, just say, God, you can have all of it today. If you want me to cancel all my plans today, I'll do it, because all my strength is yours. My schedule will understand. My agenda will understand. Are you with me? I have one more little story here. First of all, we have to know that whatever strength of ours that we give to God, he's going to steward it well. He's not going to burn us out. He's not going to wear us down. He's going to steward our strength well. And I think that overwhelming busyness and exhaustion is a result of having not given God preference over my strength. I remember this last story real quick. I remember whenever I was in high school, one of my buddies, I was talking to him on the phone, and he started talking to me about how he wanted to give his life to the Lord. And it was one of my first times to lead somebody to the Lord, and we were up until 4 a.m. It was a Friday night, up until 4 a.m. on the phone. He's asking me all these questions, and finally I pray with him, and then we talk some more, and we get off the phone around 4 a.m. Well, the next morning I had to wake up at 6 to go hike up a mountain with our youth group. I had to wake up 2 hours later to go hike up a mountain with our youth group. And I remember I laid down a little after 4 that morning, and I just said, God, I know this conversation needed to happen. And I know you were involved, and it was for you. So please pay me back all that strength. Pay me back all that energy because I have to wake up in 2 hours. You hardly get to sleep really to a deep sleep in 2 hours. It's almost impossible. And I said, God, I just want to wake up tomorrow, or in the next couple hours. I want to wake up feeling fully refreshed, fully energized, like I got a full night's sleep. The reason I can remember this story is because I woke up 2 hours later, and I guarantee you that was the best sleep I've ever had in my entire life. That's why I remember it so well. I guarantee it. That I used this strength for the glory of God, and he multiplied it and paid it back to me. Like fold upon fold upon fold. He's such a good steward of your strength, and sometimes we're so afraid to give him our energy and our strength because we're afraid we're going to feel we're going to regret it later. He always stewards it well and always pays it back in full and even more. It's amazing. So we love the Lord our God with all of our heart, our soul, our mind, and our strength. These are 4 places in our life and in our body, in our mind, in our soul. These are 4 places that God deserves. to have preference over. So at the beginning of our day, as soon as we wake up tomorrow, God, I want you to have preference over my heart. I want you to have preference over my mind. I want you to have preference over my soul. And I want you to have preference over my strength today. In whatever way, just take it. All right? All right, stand with me. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this message by Pastor Josh Cotts. We pray it blesses and encourages you throughout the week. If you'd like to know more about Living Word Church and the ministries associated with it, please visit our website at livingwordshawnee.org.